I'll be brief. You've had a long and obviously a productive day. I think it's important that we do share our own experiences of what's happening at the moment. We all share different experiences, and my experience of what's going on at the moment, just as a constituency MP, I suppose, I do, like most other MPs, I do my weekly surgery, and we do more than one a week, we do a couple a week. We have an open door policy at the office, and I do walking surgeries where you walk the streets and people put up a notice if they want to see you. My surgeries have always been pretty representative working class, multicultural community, which always had its issues, and my surgeries over the last 15 years and beyond that, when I was the GLC councillor, have always been pretty tough. There have always been issues that you've got to deal with, and they've always been difficult. In the last period, though, this last year, and longer, but particularly in this last year, I say this to people, and maybe they don't believe me really, but literally you could sit down after my surgery and weep. You could sit down and cry. And with my staff, who are fantastic, caring people, I'm at that stage now where you think whether or not they need counselling at times, because we're meeting people, and you're meeting them as well, who are in desperate straits, absolute desperate straits. Time and time again now, people are coming in who've had benefits for years, and they've gone through the ATOS system and have now lost all benefits whatsoever. In my constituency now, which is a multicultural, working class constituency, but we've always had high levels of employment, we've got Heathrow Airport in the constituency, we've never had real issues around unemployment, to be frank, and since the 1980s. Now, we've got people losing benefits, no work, and so for the first time since I've been there, that's 40 years, we're now distributing food parcels to people. Now that's Britain in 2011, the fifth richest country in the world. And the people who are suffering the most as a result of this are two groups, well, three groups. One are people with insecure nationality status, who've lost their appeals and all the rest, and often are now get no support whatsoever and are sleeping rough or sleeping in different community organisations' halls. The others are families with children, particularly families who are struggling to keep a roof over their heads with high rents and cutbacks in housing benefits. And the other group, also by far the hardest, is people with disabilities. Losing benefit, cuts in benefit, and being harassed. You know it better than me. And that's the situation, that's a daily occurrence now in my office. We're struggling just to maintain people's level of benefits, let alone trying to get new benefits and support for them. And it's as a result of, well, I have to say, it's as a result of the reforms of the last government that are now being implemented ruthlessly by this government. What the last government did, to be frank, and I'm ashamed of this as a Labour MP, is that they laid the road on which this government is now walking down and running down so fast, basically. And also, it's being done in a way which is not just ruthless, it's done in a way which is demeaning. And I heard the previous speaker. The language that is being used about people who are poor, the language that is being used about people who are unemployed, and the language that is being used about people with disabilities, to be frank with you, is an absolute disgrace in a civilised society. Yeah. And it's being used at every level. This isn't pub gossip or anything like that. It's being used in the House of Commons by individual MPs and ministers, which is a disgrace. And I think we've gone backwards rather than forwards over this recent period. So what do we do about it? Well, I've heard some of the discussion. The reality is this: there's no other way now but to fight back. We've got to resist. We've got to resist in every way possible. Of course, doing everything we can to defend individuals, to make sure that we protect them about loss of benefits, loss of rights, that sort of thing. So the individual casework that we're all doing is building up. The problem with that is, with local government cuts in particular, we're losing a lot of the welfare advice agencies and a lot of the agencies that gave us that advice. And in my area now, it's very difficult to secure representation, for example, at appeal tribunals or anything like that. But it's going to get worse as a result of government policy. So therefore, what do we do? Now, if you look at briefly at the economic situation at the moment, if you If you were George Osborne and you woke up this morning, you know, you'd have a dream and you'd be thinking, well, I wish I was back at university stuffing stuff up my nose and involved in all sorts of different things. And then you'd wake up and you'd realise you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the worst recession since the 1930s. But what does he do? Well, what does he do? He's bound. He gets down beside the bed and he prays to the only God he knows, which is the market. It's just hoping that the market will bail us all out. But every policy they're pursuing is driving us now into this double-dip recession. It's blindingly obvious, isn't it? If you cut people's benefits, if you cut their wages, if you make them unemployed, you reduce demand in the economy overall, and therefore less people are purchasing things, less people are building or making them, more people are unemployed. And so we're into a spiral now. We're into a spiral of deflation. At the same time, commodity prices are going up, and so we've got this bizarre concept of stagflation. Deflation, more and more cuts, more and more unemployment, less money in the economy, and at the same time commodity prices going up. That's what we're faced with at the moment. So the solution, to be frank, the only solution now, is we've got to get rid of this government. We've got to get rid of this government. And the way that we do that now, I think, is to exactly as Deepak was formed to do. It's formed as a result of a march. We've got to get out there, exactly as was said earlier. We've got to explain the plight of people, what people are facing. And we've got to explain to people why they're facing that. This isn't just one government. This is an economic system that drives people into poverty in this way. So the debates that are going on now are not just how do we get rid of this government, but how do we replace it so that we start changing the system. We can't go back to New Labour because that failed. We've got to get the Labour Party back again, basically. We've got to get the Labour Party back again with an understanding of how we reshape the world. Now, it's difficult at the moment for people I know, but let me just finish up on this. I'm confident that that can happen. And the reason I'm confident that can happen, I'll tell you. I think we can resist with others. Let's just give you one day. Today, just today, earlier today, I spoke at the Education Activist Network, which was organised by UCU, the union, and elements within the National Union of Students. There's literally a packed university down at King's College, maybe 500 people there, students and organisers from the UCU planning for their demonstration on November the 9th. And then planning also to link up the industrial action on November the 30th. I then went on to a Unite meeting with blacklisted workers who are planning to be engaged in these demonstrations on November the 30th to expose the suffering that they've experienced as a result of being blacklisted by their companies. Last week and every Wednesday for the last few weeks, we've had trade unions of UCAT and Unite turn up at building firms all over the country, closing sites down because they're having their wages cut. So what we've got at the moment, how do you change the world? You change it in a number of ways. First of all, through Parliament. At the moment, we're having a struggle in Parliament because we're not in control. We're also having a struggle within the Labour Party to change it. That's part of the struggle. The other way you change the world, to be frank, is through industrial action. Well, that's taking place now. On November the 30th, we'll have 3 million people out on strike, the biggest industrial action we've seen for generations. The other way you change the world is through, well, what they used to call insurrection, we now call it more mildly direct action. And that's taking place right the way across the country as well. Whether it's camps outside St Paul's. I've just come from St Paul's. They're out having a huge, well, there must be about 500 to 1,000 people there now, having a huge debate about what do they do about the legal action now being taken by the City of London Corporation against them. The solution? Abolish the City of London Corporation. It's a group of people coming together in this city and a number of cities taking direct action. Now what we've got to be part of that. Already Deepak has organised demonstrations, Linda appearing on platform after platform, explaining to people their struggle is our struggle is their struggle. We cannot be picked off one by one. Just because you're a trade unionist, we don't allow you to be picked off. Just because you've got a person with disability, we don't allow you to be isolated. Just because you're a student, we don't allow them to increase your fees and close down higher education, which is what they're going to do next year with privatisation. What we've got to say is we're strong when we're all together. And I think that's our job now, is to link these different struggles. The ones, the trade union struggles with the direct action struggles. And in that way, I think we'll create a climate that actually will influence Parliament itself. And I think it will create a climate of resistance where no government can get elected again based upon these policies of cuts and neoliberalism. Now, that's the task in hand. Now, DPAC was formed for all of these activities. So let's just go through this next few weeks. I think what we need to do is make sure when the students come out on November the 9th, we're there with them. And that we're there in a creative form, marshalling people to turn up, explain the plight that we're in, and explain that this same attack that's happening to them is happening to us. When November the 30th comes, we've got to be on the demonstrations and be on the picket lines. Wouldn't it be good if we had a person with disabilities on every picket line on that strike right the way across the country? That would be an incredible achievement. Finally, as the earlier speaker said, we've got to use absolutely every creative mechanism we possibly can. We've got to use the new media that we can if we don't get coverage in the mainstream media. We've got to use every way we possibly can to put the message out. I just give you this last example. I was on the first hardest hit demonstration in London, and I thought it was an excellent turnout and all the rest. And there were a group there with the T-shirts on, some of you will know, from the Tourette's campaigning group, and they were fantastic, And one of them came up to me and said, look, I'm a Tourette's sufferer. And I said, I've got constituents who've got that condition, and it's a serious condition, and actually can destroy people's lives. And he said to me, well, it's bloody good when you're lobbying MPs. Because occasionally shouting abuse at MPs works. I think that demonstrated to me the creativity and determination of someone who suffered from a condition that has almost destroyed their lives, but they've turned it into a creative force of resistance. That's what we've all got to be, creative forces of resistance. Bring this government down, but never allow another government in that will cut our benefits, make us unemployed, cut our services, and jeopardise civil liberties in this country. Solidarity.